If you're thinking about selling your lake home in the Hayward area, the biggest mistake that I see sellers make is pricing it on the wrong lake. And this can leave you tens of thousands of dollars at the table. What the problem is people jump onto Zillow or other, you know, internet type property searches, and they look at nearby sales, and it gives them the wrong information. We're very lake specific out here for all kinds of reasons, and a lot of people will assume that all lakes are equal, and they're not. So all lakes, remember that, out here in this area, all lakes are not created equal. And you have to do a deeper dive into what you have and using, the properties on the lake. And I can tell you, two properties on the same lake can have a great variation. You have to dive deeper into that to get your true value for the property that you're dealing with. The other thing is that people will price emotionally. I see a lot of sellers do that. They created all these memories, which are incredible and they're very important. However, the market doesn't price based on memories. It's based on what's happening and the demand and things that are out there. So these are things that we need to be careful of when you're pricing your home, and you don't leave tens of thousands of dollars on the table. What you have to remember is lake matters in this perspective more than the house. So depending on a certain lake, what people are looking for and what the current trends are as far as where people are searching for, and I'm talking about buyer philosophies here, is that the house is not necessarily as important as a lake. And a lot of people, when you're seeing this, yes, you've created a lot of memories, and I got to be careful with this, but some people come in and they're looking to create their new memories, and they're trying to be respectful, and they may look at it as, the house doesn't have the value, but the property does. Water clarity is very important. The depth, how deep it is, and all these things, as far as also the ability to just walk right on from the property into the lake and having a nice, sandy, bottom slash, light rock, things like that are easy versus, heavy muck and, swampy feeling. Not that, people won't purchase that home, but they just have different things that they're taking a look at. Recreational use. There's people that are coming in that really love wakeboarding. I know that can be a topic of conversation. Other people just want a quiet place to fish, or just enjoy pontoon boat rides with quiet, and not a whole lot of, what jet skis and wave runners and all that fun stuff. Privacy is very important. That's something that a lot of people are searching for. At the same time, there's also people searching for lakes that are, mixed use recreation. They really love the social aspect. So maybe privacy isn't as important. Houses can be closer. So these are all things to take into, consideration. And I've spoken this briefly, but shoreline quality, that is another thing that holds true to the value of the home. So when you're just looking at random internet, comparables, they don't take all these things into account, and it needs to be. Otherwise, you can be leaving tens of thousands, if not more, on the table when you could have gotten that for the price of your home. In the Northwoods, the lake itself can drive the value. I've seen two properties, almost identical on paper, have completely different values just because they're on different lakes. And these are things to consider when you're pricing your home properly, so that you don't leave the money on the table, the tens of thousands. For me, for a quick example, I love, the idea of catching muskie on a fly. It's a muskie fly, or maybe a pike fly. It's kind of a smaller version, but it's a popper, and it's called, I tied it, it's Yancey's bedhead. It's a popper fly, and I have a thing that I want to catch a muskie on this fly. So if I were someone coming up from, one of the areas that are migrating up, and that was my desire, I'd be looking at lake. So each buyer has a different profile and personality as to what they're looking for in the lake. I've had other people that they're all about the wakeboarding. There's something for everyone when we're talking about lake property. So these are things to, keep in mind, and why these homes can be priced completely differently, just depending on the lake. Pricing correctly at the very beginning is the most important decision that you're going to make about selling your home. Pricing it properly can not just attract buyers, but it can create that competition effect. When you have a home that's way overpriced at the start and that right out of the gate, the first 30 and 60 days are your top days to grab the attention and to create that that draw to what we're looking for buyers when they're coming in. And so pricing it is very, very important. So if you want to understand what your lake home is worth in today's market, I'm happy to come on over and walk you through it. Just feel free to give me a call. My number's in all the descriptions. I'm easy to get a hold of. I look forward to talking to you.